Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special media availability. We are very pleased to have with us the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina J. Mohammed. We've also got accompanying her, we have Andersen, the Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Program, and Elizabeth Maruma Mrema, the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So the Deputy Secretary General will make some brief remarks, and then we will open up the floor to questions from you. So without further ado, Deputy Secretary General.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and thank you for being here with us this evening. Well, here at COP15, it's 4 years since the journey started, and the time really has come to finalize and adopt a global biodiversity framework and ensure that adequate resources are available and accessible for implementation for all countries. Considerable progress has been made so far here in Montreal on the overall UN biodiversity agenda, and this includes progress on a range of decisions under Nagoya and the Cartagena protocols, and on many issues under consideration by the Conference of the Parties. But we're now entering the final stages, and parties to the Convention have little time to finalize key agreements and to ensure tangible outcomes. Once again, we will say our life support system is at stake. The landmark agreement that parties are negotiating provides a strategic opportunity to address the triple planetary crisis through coordinated, cross-sectoral and transformative actions. We can bend the curve on biodiversity loss, but only if we take urgent action in these areas. First, we need to finalize and adopt an ambitious post-2020 global diversity framework that puts us on the path to achieving the 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature. Second, we need resource mobilization and capacity development and support to ensure that all parties are in a position to implement the framework and to measure progress. And third, we need a robust framework to share the benefits that are stemming from the use of digital sequencing information on genetic resources so all countries can benefit equally. Today, I will be urging ministers to push for progress and ambition on all three of these elements. The time for solidarity in the negotiations is now. Our planet is crying out for a biodiversity framework that tackles biodiversity loss, conserves nature's gifts, and supports people's lives and livelihoods around the world. We must make progress on all the areas as a package that support our life on the planet. From achieving the Paris Agreement on climate, to addressing land degradation and to preventing risk and buffering against natural disasters, to ensuring food and water security, to underpinning the health and well-being of all people everywhere. In the remaining days at COP, we must match commitments with actions and resources to deliver on the framework and to ensure transparency and accountability throughout. It is an opportunity to reset our relationship with nature. Let's ensure that this historic opportunity doesn't slip away. Our thanks to China for leading this process of the COP15 and to Canada for hosting us in Montreal, and to all our ministers and negotiators who in the days ahead will be working tirelessly to deliver a package of solutions that will enable us to declare a historic moment for nature here in Montreal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now open the floor for questions. Please raise your hand, and when you take your question, please indicate your news agency and your name. So we have a question here in the fourth row, just off the center aisle, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam. I'm a reporter from the paper China, and my first question to the Madam Mohammed is: we know that recently there is some disagreement among the developing countries and the developed countries on the financial issues in the negotiation. So, what is your thoughts on to address this issue and to meet their gaps and to promote negotiation going on? And my second question to Madam Andersen is about the 30-30 goals. And we know that many people think this is not enough and even erase the 50-50 beyond. And how shall we see these goals from the balance of a scientific and a feasibility perspective? Thank you very much.
Well, there will always be tensions, particularly around means of implementation. The ambitions for biodiversity are about all of us, They are commitments that we all need to take because it affects us as humanity. If we don't take care of our biodiversity, there will be no us. But the means of implementation have to be there, and these are where the tensions are. I think over the past few years, we have seen that many commitments around financing for developing countries have not been met. And this has created a sense of mistrust. There's a trust deficit there. And what we need to do is to create the conditions in the room that allow that trust to prevail and for everyone to get around this issue as us and not you and me. It is a collective decision. And in the discussions that I've had today with all parties, there is a positive and constructive mood to try to get past these tensions and into agreement, both on the ambition of the targets, but also the resources that will be needed to implement those targets.
Thank you very much. Ms. Andersen?
I'll be very brief because we'd rather hear from our Deputy Secretary General. But just to say that, yes, obviously 30 by 30 is one of the 20 plus goals. It is an important one. Would I like to see 100 by 100? Of course, because I'd like to see all biodiversity kept. I think the issue here is to think about biodiversity in all its beauty, not just in protected areas, on farmers' fields, in your backyard, in urban parks, on rooftops, in everywhere. And that's the point that we'd like to essentially make, that we take from nature enough that nature can be sustainable. If we do that, yes, we will need protected areas, but more importantly, to protect biodiversity on working landscapes. So I think that's why we need to take the full package of all the goals together so that we can see that we don't overfocus on one, but in fact, it is living creatures and living nature that we want to protect wherever it exists. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I recognize Kyoto News.
Thanks. Tetsuji from Kyoto News. I think one of the reasons of deadlock of discussion regarding finance is the GEF cannot have a trust or confidence among recipient or developing countries. And we are talking about quite a long time about GEF reform, but still they cannot have a confidence among the parties. So don't you think that fundamental change of structure or governance of GEF should be needed? That's my first question. And second question is, I want to know your opinion, two of you, about to create new funding mechanisms, including private finance, other than GEF in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When GEF was designed, it was a different set of circumstances than we find today. And I think when one looks back, it's 2020 vision, right? So I think that today we are asking for a lot of ambition. We're asking for financing. And in the course of those discussions, GEF has come up as to, is an existing vehicle perhaps the best way to look at increasing financing to biodiversity? Maybe it is, but if it is, then of course member states should be open to reviewing whether GEF is fit for purpose here on in. We are looking at a future trajectory for investing in protecting biodiversity. So I would say if one has lost confidence in GEF, I don't believe that's the case. I don't think people have lost confidence in GEF. I think people think that there are things that can be done to improve it. And to the extent that people are thinking, is this a vehicle that can do even more? And that, of course, needs some review to make sure it is fit for purpose. In terms of new funding, look, we did not expect, and we have a new funding mechanism coming out of Paris and COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh on loss and damage, and that fund will, in the course of the next few months, will be set up. And that's a good thing because it gives a signal to communities that are most vulnerable and suffered from loss and damage, that people are thinking about how to compensate and how to deal with that. New funds today, very difficult environment, but not impossible.
Great, thank you very much. Would you take one more question, please? Front row here, thanks.
Hi, my name is Jean-Thomas Léveillé from La Presse newspaper here in Montreal. My question is for whom wants to answer. Can you talk about the progress since the ministers have started negotiating, or things that are still locked and will be difficult?
I believe that when the president of COP took the decision to engage with ministers and to bring focus and attention to a few areas, that the atmosphere improved. Bringing everyone together is always a good thing, but giving them, I would say, work to do to try to get the best outcomes in terms of the ambitions is even better. And what I've heard and seen in the few hours that I've been here today is positive. It's constructive. There are concerns that are still on the table, but people are engaged. And I think, credit to Elizabeth, who has been anchoring this process for member states, that we've never seen this much engagement from the private sector, from civil society, ever. That's a good thing. And that creates some momentum for member states to have to get an ambitious result out the door. And that means a result that can be collected from countries and other key stakeholders to implement. So I'm very confident. I'm positive that the ministers that are here now understand what is at stake, and it's for them now to lift it and to ensure that we get the ambitions in a balanced way that has the targets that we're setting to protect biodiversity, and also the resources to do so. It's a point at which I would say we have a choice now to step back from the precipice and make this work. I don't know if, Elizabeth, would you want to add something?
Nothing major to add, Amina. It's true that the atmosphere has completely changed with the minister's presence, and delighted that the president of COP is also engaging bilateral and beyond, specifically with ministers, engaging and requesting other ministers to also help in the consultations behind the scenes, while, of course, in the contact groups, the negotiators continue reducing brackets from the different targets. So the atmosphere is very good, and indeed, it gives me equally confidence that we'll come out of here, all of us, happy.
Excellent, thank you. We're really running behind time, so I really regret we can't take another question. Would you like to take another one?
Yeah, I want to take from a woman because we just had 3 men.
Oh, that's true. Very good point. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Duly noted. Thank you. My apologies.
Thank you for that. My name is Julia. I'm a journalist from South Africa here with Earth Journalism Network. I would just like to ask, can you give us any updates on what's happening with DSI and access and benefit sharing? That's all. Thank you.
So I'll say what I know, and we've discussed with a couple of countries who are pretty engaged and hold on very seriously to DSI. The concerns are, have the discussions been in depth enough for everyone to get on board and give a just and fair sharing of the wealth? And this is still something I hope that the ministers who are going to engage in helping the president through will come to agreement. There is more agreement on it than there isn't, and that's hopeful. And so I believe that that's one of the key elements of the package that will come together. But I don't know if Elizabeth has got anything to add to that. She was in our discussions.
Indeed, negotiations are still continuing, but when one looks at the framework and the DSI, in fact, the DSI is making or has made already more progress than looking at the framework in totality. So we believe with that momentum, a breakthrough will come through, either here or partly here, and further discussions, negotiations to continue to the next COP.
Thank you for my panelists. They've got an exceedingly busy day, so they're off to the next meetings. So thank you, Deputy Secretary General, Executive Director, and Executive Secretary. I wish you all a good day. Thanks so much.
Which one? Oh, there is a reception. There's the timer. Yeah, well, I'll be here.